I know you said borderline personality disorder. You say is that like the top hardest to deal with?
I think, I'm surprised with social media. Certainly everybody gets narcissism and deals with it. But I think borderline personality is just so confusing to people because their behavior is just so erratic and inconsistent. And it could really make somebody in a relationship just so confused about what's going on and kind of feel really hopeless about the situation. It's really tragic if you're in a relationship with somebody that's a severe borderline. It can be really difficult. But with borderline personality, they feel really empty and they don't really know who they are. So they're frantically, they will do anything not to be abandoned by someone. And they have this intense fear of being abandoned by someone. So they will go through dramatic efforts to avoid that from happening. And if you even say, well, I have to go to work, I have to leave now, and they don't want you leaving, they might get really angry, furious. They could get physical with people. Their lives are just complete chaos, and they bring that chaos to everybody else's life.
Could that fall under someone who might be a serial dater too? That this can't, breaks up with someone over the weekend and has someone new by Monday?
Oh, well, definitely for a lot of them, but certainly somebody that has such a fear for abandonment, absolutely they will. But because they're so nice 1 minute, and then they might devalue you. You're the best person in the world 1 minute, and then you're the worst the next. So when that happens, you're kind of confused as the other person in the relationship, like what's going on here, not really understanding it.
But this sounds even more dangerous to date than a narcissist to me so far.
I think so. I mean, yes, they're both equally, it's not fun being on the other side of it, but you just never know. I always compare borderline personality, if people have seen the movie in the 90s, like Single White Female.
Yeah.
They don't really have a sense of self, so they might mirror someone else. They might want to take on their lives. They might want to sabotage their lives, anything, not to leave them. I feel like every decade there's a new film that talks about borderline personality. In the 80s, we had Fatal Attraction with Glenn Close and Michael Douglas. And, I think he wanted to go to work one day, and because he just had something to do, I think they met 24 hours earlier and had to go to work, and she comes out with her wrists bleeding, and I if that's what you're dealing with. And he's like, holy crap, what am I dealing with? And that's going to be your life until she stalks you and then boils your daughter's rabbit.
Let's talk an origin of that though. What makes someone be borderline?
Well, it's complicated. Yes, there may be a genetic predisposition with parents that might have other mental health disorders. They may have some really early childhood traumas, which is why, they have such a fear of abandonment. And even that lack of sense of self, they might have been neglected. And because of that, they're trying to draw attention to themselves in some way and really don't like themselves. People haven't treated them well, so their feeling about themselves is not so great either. So they may do things like cut themselves, even superficially, not necessarily to kill themselves, but sometimes they will actually try to end their lives, but they might self-mutilate, they might use substances, they might be promiscuous, they might drive a car recklessly. So they will be constantly chaotic and bring chaos to your life as well.
Okay. So how on earth do you even reach someone like that?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, really establishing a relationship of trust. Trust is really important, because if they haven't been able to trust people in their lives before, even that fundamental parents, people that they grew up with, if they didn't have that stable relationship, it's going to be hard for them to trust you. And they're going to do the same thing with you as they do with everyone else in the world. They're going to overvalue you. You're the best doctor in the world. And then, if you don't answer their call in 5 or 10 minutes, you're the worst. Or if you say to them that's not something appropriate, they may take insult to that. And so you really have to work with your own emotional gauge with that. Yes, they could be really frustrating to work with, but if you stay consistent with them and you don't disappear and you don't abandon them, they will build that trust and they will be able to develop healthier patterns over time. But it's a challenge for sure. Absolutely.
So, what would you say to someone? I won't even go into the dating department, but family, like how does a family member even see a flag like this to maybe see about getting them treatment?
Yeah. Well, if they are constantly arguing with everyone in their lives, if they're creating problems in other people's lives that they can't contain it and it spills into other people's lives, or they're hot and cold, you feel like you kind of have to walk on eggshells with them all the time and tiptoe around certain subjects, or they might be a little bit explosive, um, then you just want to keep boundaries with them as well. Like, you have to establish what you feel is appropriate in your life, and when they create too much trouble for you, or you say, this isn't going to be a part of my life. But I think as long as you're doing that with kindness and gentleness and love, I feel like they'll respond to that because they really do want to have boundaries, even though they don't know what's like an appropriate boundary with another person. I think if you do it kindly and gently with them, then they can respect that. So the more you say, just stay in this frame in my life and don't cross that line, I think that's probably the best way to manage them.
So you would say, because you would almost say the the borderline personality can be way more destructive than like someone who's narcissist. Because
Absolutely.
narcissist is looking for this constant validation, right?
Right, right. They will try to bulldoze over you. And if they don't get what they want and they become frustrated, and not because you're not giving them the attention or the power or whatever it is they're seeking, then they'll just move on to the next thing. Borderline, because they have such a fear of that abandonment, they might stalk you for a while. If you're trying to let go, they're going to probably tighten their reins even more. So it's going to be hard to get them out of your life.